Hello. Today we're looking at the FX9750G3 new graphing calculator from Casio Education, and we're going to show you how this calculator has hopefully addressed the viral problem that seems to be a big issue with math teachers, the one that's 6 divided by 2 parentheses 1 plus 2. So some calculators interpret anything under a division, even though this is written linearly, as all grouped together. So sometimes you get an answer of 1, sometimes you get an answer of 9. The key here is you should really be precise if you're going to write this problem out linearly. If you meant this whole quantity to be divided into 6, then you should use parentheses. Or if you meant you first have division of 6 and 2, and then this is grouped 1 plus 2. What I want to show you is how this calculator basically handles that situation for you if you don't use standard notation. So I'm going to show you all the different ways you could represent this problem where there isn't the ambiguity or the confusion. So one thing I want to point out, I'm in the run matrix. This is where you do calculators. This is a menu-driven calculator. I hit execute to open that, and now I can start doing my calculations. I did want to show you, we're going to go into all 3 options here just so you can see the difference. But when you go into it and hit Shift menu, you can see the setup, and you'll see the first thing that's up here, what kind of input output are you talking about? And there's 3 options: math, linear, and mixed math. So I'm going to show you each. The default is math, so we're going to hit exit and go back to this. And let's say I enter the problem that's been given to me. There's no real clarification. I want to show you what happens in this calculator. So when I hit 6 divided by 2, parentheses, 1 plus 2, and I hit execute to solve the solution, I would like to show you that this calculator automatically puts in parentheses to tell you what it interpreted the problem to be. So this is being interpreted as implied grouping. So anything after division, unless you put a parentheses to separate it, as in this case, it's going to assume that this entire thing is grouped, and that entire quantity, 2 parentheses 1 plus 2, is the divisor, being divided into 6. If that's not what you wanted, you could go up and change it. I'm just going to show you some options. So you could go and say, oh, that's not what I meant. I actually meant that I wanted the 6 and we're going to delete this, and the 2 grouped, and then the 1 and the 2 grouped, right? So you can go and correct it if you want. And so watch what happens when I corrected it. I get the solution of 9. But the nice thing about the calculator is it's telling you how it grouped it before it did the calculation, and therefore students can look and say, oh, that's not what we meant. When you're doing this with students, you as a teacher or the textbook and assessment should be precise. Another thing is if you actually did mean the 6 and the 2 to be together, to be grouped, you should be using, if the calculator has it, and which all Casio calculators do, use the template. So instead you could have done 6 divided by 2 and shown that this is the grouping that we want, and then we want it multiplied by the 1 plus 2. So that's another option. Or if you didn't want it that way, if you wanted the 2 and the 1 plus 2 to be grouped, you could still use the template, but now notice I'm still in the template, and now I'm going to get 1. So the key here is make sure that you are clear on what you want. But if you're not, this calculator will now tell you how it interpreted what you entered, user error, what you entered, and how they got the solution. And if that's not what you wanted, if you didn't want to group that way, you can go back and change it. So this was in the math. So I'm going to go back to Shift Setup, and I'm going to go change the input-output to linear and show you the difference. It just looks different when you enter it. So we've changed it to linear. We're going to hit exit. It kind of got rid of things. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to do 6 divided by 2 as it's given to us, and hit execute. And you'll notice again it's doing exactly the same thing. If I am getting back from the calculator the way that it interpreted. It interpreted implied grouping that once you put the division sign, everything after that, unless you group it differently, is being divided, right? So we're dividing by this whole quantity. If you didn't want that, you could use the template, and I want to show you the difference here of how it looks when you're in linear format. So I could have done 6 divided by 2. So notice in linear format you don't see the fraction standard notation because it's in linear format, but this is showing you 6 over 2, so 2's in the denominator position. And then I could hit 1 plus 2, and it's still going to interpret this as all being grouped under the, no, it's not, I'm sorry. It's interpreting this as 6 over 2, this quantity is grouped, and then multiplied by 1 plus 2. So notice we get a different answer. So you really need to be clear on what it is that you're expecting. So let's go and change to the third mode and show you again the difference. So this is mixed math, and so I'm going to choose F3, execute. Notice it comes back to when we were in math mode, and I'm just going to delete all this so we can start with a clean screen. So again, this mode is actually pretty much the same as the very first mode as far as doing a calculation like this. So again, when I hit execute, it is showing me how it had interpreted things, how it assumed that they were together, because this is assumed to be grouped. This is grouped under division, all grouped together. If you didn't want that, you can do your template and then your parentheses, or if you did want that. So if you have a calculator that has standard notation, as this one does, I would suggest using that so that this ambiguity does not exist. But if you're writing problems like this for your students, you need to be very clear in what it is that you are grouping together. That's important. Precision matters in mathematics. I wanted to also give you an example of, and let's just hit execute, get our answer, of how the calculator is interpreting implied multiplication, basically. So let's say I want to do 5 pi. So I've got 5, and instead of times, I'm going to do 5 pi. I'm going to use the pi symbol, which is right here in yellow above. So I'm going to hit Shift pi. And if I divide by, let's say, 2 pi, it's going to do the same thing. It's going to basically show me how it interpreted this. It interpreted this 5 pi as a group and this entire quantity as a group. If that's not what you wanted, let's say you wanted 5 pi and you wanted to divide that by 2 and then multiply by pi, you'll get a different answer. So again, the calculator is automatically interpreting what you've entered, and it's showing you how it interpreted it. So it's a really nice feature if students end up with different answers because they entered the problem differently, because it wasn't clear, you weren't precise in how you wrote it. It's showing them how things are being interpreted, and so then they can go back and go, oh, no, I meant to first divide by 2 and then multiply by pi, so different. So a really nice, wonderful feature in this calculator.